Good afternoon, this is Jeff with Sewer Tech Northwest. We are at property address 16915 Green Tree Avenue here in Lake Oswego, located just inside the garage door, kind of front left corner of the garage as you face the house from the street. We're going to check the overall condition and serviceability of the sanitary sewer line. Waters are running. We're going to zero out the foot counter here at the base of the cleanout, and off we go. Transitioning here over to 6-inch concrete. Okay, so right here at about 100 feet out, we have you've got a pretty significant separation here, and I caught a view there at one point where it just about looks like you can look into the ground. My camera won't round this bend, the separation is so bad, and a joint separated to that extent, whether you can see into the ground or not, I can pretty much guarantee you that joint is opened up to the ground. There was one other joint behind us we're going to revisit here in a moment that is looking somewhat similar to that. So we're going to go locate really quick here, and then we'll pull back once the line's drained. All right, located the camera head successfully here. It looks like we are sitting just barely before the main lateral. We're lined up almost perfectly with the manhole, just barely up the street. The line makes its way out to the main through the front yard area and kind of orients towards the left side of the property line as you look at the house from the street. My locate here is coming in very, very jumpy. I put a green X on the ground out in the street. That's to be considered rough until it's relocated. We're at a depth here my locator's just having a hard time getting to. In fact, if you back up here a little bit, it looks like I can just barely see the oval-shaped opening to the main there. And that turn is a very indicative thing. Right before especially an older line hits a main, it often will do a little bit of a turn like that. And then you have another separation here just behind it at about 96 feet. Both of those to some extent are very likely open to the ground. As it sits right now, neither one of them are affecting flow. Not the kind of thing that's going to cause a blockage, but it can cause progressive settling over time. That joint there has shifted to some extent and pulled apart, but in the flow line, we don't have any offsets or anything like that. But that is something I do recommend a correction on, so the line remains in a functional state. And being that you still have good slope and grade here, I would highly recommend looking into the prospect of a epoxy liner for that fix. That's assuming that falls into homeowner responsibility. I would check with the city first. Both those joints are in the roadway. Now you're going to see some water coming down, or water shooting down line here. I had to do a toilet flush. Trying to clean something out of the line here my camera's going over the top of. So where the line transitions to concrete, just based on how far out in the road we went there, looks like the line swaps over to concrete right about where the right-of-way is at. So, a few feet before the curb. Or usually it's within about 5 feet of the curb typically. Now this line has so much fall to it, it is fantastic. It is a good idea, especially with a line this long, it's on a hillside like this, which is an awkward thing to do repairs on. I highly recommend you rescope the line about every 2 years or so. It's an older sewer line. It's held up quite nicely, by and large, with the exception of some issues out there in the concrete pipe. But going back to what we were looking at there in the street, nothing lasts for forever. Eventually, joints are usually the first place to start wearing out, so you want to take a look at the line periodically to watch for that occurring, especially on property. What you don't want to have happen is the line wear out to the point where it starts to allow dirt and groundwater to seep through and cause hydro erosion, which if you let the line settle too badly, you'll often lose the ability to do a trenchless epoxy liner at some point, which would be an ideal way to do this update at some point in time, if you're here long enough to see that. And that section of pipe out in the roadway, it's got great slope and grade still, despite the separations. That area out there would be a great spot to do a liner and avoid digging. And all that water you're seeing there in the flow line, all that is moving, flowing water. That's from the toilet flush I just did. Looks like right around where the staircase is about where the line turns to start heading into the yard. All right, we're going to go and roll the camera out of the line. We have good flow all the way out to the main lateral. The line is functioning beautifully as it relates to flow, but I do recommend spot repair there on those two joints to make sure they're bolstered up and you don't lose the ability to do that. But you want to start with contacting the city because that may very well fall into city responsibility there. If any repairs ever do get done, whether it's city or not, it's a good idea to rescope and check the work, make sure everything looks good.